Hey folks, I'm Aspen Arrow and this is Planet Zoo. Today we finished work on our platypus habitat. I did want to just let you know I did work on a few things off camera as I had indicated I would. I did go ahead and get the path moved over so it aligns with the little viewing area here. It did extend our staff paths, so I've worked on edging those and started working on foliage in this little bench area. And I carried our bamboo posts over to the woven bark walls and added this decorative piece. I believe it's just the Oceania tribal wood panel. And then I did recolor it because I think it's normally pink and turquoise. So we recolored it a bit to go with our bamboo. Added the bamboo 1 meter piece down here on the bottom for some additional texture and change to the bark wall. And this is now one-way glass so that our animals can maintain some privacy. I did also take just a few minutes to fix some other things. I put in a water treatment facility so that our water will stay clean for the platypus and a few other animals. Put in our sign, a door, much like our staff center, and ran the bamboo along the thatch wall here as it had the same issue as our staff center, that the bamboo of the thatch itself sort of bleeds through the other building pieces. So today, I'd like to go ahead and build up our waterfall area, and I'm going to turn this into sort of a cave entrance for our platypus to enter. So I'm hoping that'll look really unique and interesting along with our waterfall. I'd also like to get our last part of this inside habitat done. I did look at the platypus requirements, and they are actually confident with humans. So rather than putting it another thing of one-way glass, I think I'm just going to put a half barrier across this portion so the guests couldn't, poke at them or anything, just reach over the wall, and yet they'll still be able to see the animals here in one of their sleeping areas. So I'm hoping that will look better than having double thick glass. And I think that's pretty much all I did before I started up the recording today. So let's go ahead and get started on building our waterfall. I did go ahead and take a minute to recolor our pre-built platforms here for the waterfalls or the cliff formations. I did go ahead and just change them to straight black on the rock color so that it will be easier to blend in with the volcanic rocks that we're going to use to make the waterfall and the sort of cave, if you will, for this habitat. So I'm going to start with just grabbing our rock cladding, the fairly thin pieces, to build up and cover this woven bark area. And I'm just leaving the woven bark there because it makes it easier for me to make sure we're sort of straight up and down here. And so I'll get this part done and then we'll get our waterfall made. I'll see you back here in a minute. So our stone cladding is in, and that is going to provide the base for us building up our waterfall as well as the cave or maybe burrow entrance over here to hide the ramp. So I'm just going to go back in and grab our volcanic rocks again, and this time actually just type volcanic so I get my search filter, and I will start putting rocks here to hide the edge and just sort of build up a hopefully somewhat natural looking waterfall. Don't want this to get too heavily built up as I feel like too many rocks here is going to stop our keepers from being able to access over here, as well as perhaps our animals from being able to access a bunch of the habitat, given that this is a decent sized portion of it. So I think we'll stop there and see how we like it. Go ahead and hit play here for a minute. I think this would look really nice, just a touch further so it looks like it's being splashed on here. That's a nice little change. Next up, let's go ahead and start getting our burrow work done. My idea for this is to take a relatively short piece of the cladding and sort of make an arch here and then fill in the what will obviously be gaps. So let's go ahead and give that a try and see if it works. And as you can see, a relatively simple task. If you didn't know you can use angle snap, I actually didn't know you could do this for quite some time, but you can snap this and pick the degree to which things rotate. And that is what gives you this option to rotate it in more controlled fashion. I find that I still have to turn it on and off quite frequently, as sometimes the angle just doesn't align to the world, but it does make things like arches, circular work a lot easier. So let's go ahead and stack in some rocks to cover up the top of our archway here. And then we'll bring in foliage and various other things to spruce it up. I am avoiding blocking the ramp as I want the animals to be able to access that. Oh, that's a bit big. Let's do something. Okay, somewhere in between those two pieces. Ah, that might work. You can also turn on a random rotation, which will just rotate your pieces randomly and create, I guess, a less symmetrical and more natural appearance as you're building. So that can be useful if you just need to place a lot of rocks, especially. Just remember to turn it off when you're trying to place your building pieces or you'll be pulling your hair out. And I think we will, since the platypus are fairly small, pull some rocks over just in the front here. And we have a nice little archway that they should be able to access and get into. We'll check once we dump them in the habitat. This rock is unfortunately blocking our ramp a bit, so we'll go ahead and move it. I don't think they need quite that whole space, but I do want to maintain as much of it as I can so they can get up and down. And there we go. We have our waterfall and our little start of our little den or burrow for the platypus. I'd like to get the platypus into the habitat today, so I'm going to go ahead and make our fence, and I may end up having to do some of the inside work uh, on my own time in the interest of how long this video runs. As you can see, as you start building, some of these builds can take a really long time, and I am trying to find that balance of hopefully showing you interesting things and things that inspire you, doing speed building to a standpoint, and then also just sort of editing out or cutting things that I think are fairly straightforward and most of you know how to do. If you have any feedback on how I'm approaching this, of course, I welcome that, and you're happy to leave me a comment about what you'd like to see moving forward. I think we may go ahead and use a pre-built fence. I was looking at this ocean driftwood, which sort of looks like our bamboo, but changes up a little bit. Here's the angle snap issue. And also, as we see the random rotation issue as my pieces keep moving. And I think that'll be a nice fence that allows us to use a pre-built piece. Custom fences are a lot of fun to build, but again, they can take a lot of time to get right. And we have already built so many custom parts of this habitat and still need to decorate. So let me go ahead and get the fence in. I had to improvise a little bit with our fence here and create a bit of a retaining wall feature underneath part of it, as our land is actually pretty uneven, and with the riverbed and the intention to extend it, I didn't want to pull out the river and redo the land underneath to create a more smooth surface. So I've gone ahead and mirrored our plaster pieces. This is just a 1 meter plaster piece that I've then run underneath the fence to create sort of a retaining wall look. And in the long run, my intention will be to pull this part of the wall out as we run our river along it and make more of a natural dam or barrier. But for today, I think this is a decent little enclosure. We need to get some foliage in and we need to get our platypus. So first things first, let's go ahead and get some staff hired. And this time we will keep them, as I will not reset the save. So we're going to get a caretaker, a keeper. We'll go ahead and get a mechanic so when the zoo is running, they can make sure our barriers are good. And we'll get a veterinarian. And we'll worry about the other ones as we need them. And let's go to our animal training center and see what we can pick up today. So when I looked in the Zoopedia, it looks like they're pretty small. I believe it was 1 male and 2 females. Just double check here. Yeah, 1 male and up to 2 females. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that done. And since conservation credits have no meaning in Sandbox and we don't have to do any worry about them, let's go ahead and get our appealing ones and then grab this extra female. Go ahead and unpause so our staff go in. Animal storage, and then we will send them over to our quarantine to make sure they're all healthy before putting them into our habitat. Go ahead and take a minute to add some enrichment for them. So we'll need food, filter by our species. I do wish I could type right here in this menu, but there they are. So let's go ahead and get a small food tray. It will need to be accessible to our keepers, which you can check. Again, just using that traversable area. So you can see our keepers can get, actually, I'm a little surprised they can get in here. But they can actually get through most of the habitat, just not the water. I don't know that they're going to be able to put the enrichment in the tank either, since that is, well, they actually can get pretty far up the ramp, but I think the glass is here. So I don't know that we will be able to use the diving enrichment, but go ahead and put our little food. They'll have water from the natural water, and that's in part way we want to make sure it's clean. Looks like they like a burrow, so we can actually put the in-game burrow, give them some places to hide out here. I think we'll go ahead and slide that over here, and doesn't look like it needs me to raise it all, so we'll see if that's accessible. Doesn't look like they need any sort of bedding. I may go ahead and toss some in here anyway. Then we'll get some enrichment for them. How about some frozen fish? Little submarine hanging out in our water area. And I think we'll incorporate the water jets as we build up the river area. So let's go ahead, and it looks like they passed quarantine. See if they all have. Oh, we're just waiting on the last one. So we'll just move them all at once. Oh, and of course, as soon as I click off, they're all ready. Let's grab our new animals and move them over into their habitat. Make sure we can access everything, that they can't escape, and then it'll just be working on finishing the final details and working on the inside of our viewing area. So in the meantime, while they're getting pulled over, let's go ahead and look at their nature requirements. So they are aquatic, tropical, grassland, temperate in Oceania. We had aquatic, temperate, oh, I can't remember. Aquatic, tropical, grassland, temperate. And then we want our Oceania. Oops. Sorry, in the continent rather than the theme. And And here's our little platypus, or platypi. I still am not entirely sure how to pluralize the word. Oh, I forgot to put the ramp back in. So we'll need to go put the ramp back in to get to that, but it looks like they have a more reasonable amount of space, but more than they need. They've got water. I imagine once we get them access to the deep water, the overall area will go up as well. But let's take a look at our first animals of the zoo. Such odd little creatures, but truly quite adorable. So let's get their terrain fixed up. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at their tab, and we will get all the environment adjusted, and I will also go in and get their deep water fixed. So they didn't want a lot of grass. We've got rid of most of it while letting some of it peek through. Using the intensity of the tool can be really helpful, as you can lower the intensity and still get some of the color and try to do some blending. Obviously, it's not perhaps my strongest suit, but it's definitely something I work on and strive to create some more interesting texture than just straight sand. I will go ahead and check now that I have put in the little ramp and unpause and see if they're able to access that yet. Yep, and as you can see, now we have access to our indoor area. Oh, and they're going in the little burrow. I was afraid they wouldn't do this. Are you gonna go up? It's always nice to see if something you design works. I want to see if we're going to follow our little guy here. Are you going to go get in the water? Hey, look at that. It worked. We have an indoor, outdoor habitat. And they came and got in the big tank. Oh, I am so excited by this. Obviously, our big tank needs some work still too. But I am so excited to see that our platypus is going to come and get in here, and I think our guests will have a great view. Oh yeah, they're a little small, and currently our sun is a little odd. I do need to come in and change the watercolor. Again, if you didn't know this was something that took me a while. You can actually change your water, so we could make it very blue, which is kind of fun. Oh, and that clears up the water too. But you can make it blue, you can make it green, brown, even pink. And I believe you can custom color it too. But I think the tropical actually was a really nice color and helped clear up that water some. So our guests should have a nice view. Excellent. I'm super happy that this worked. I have not built a habitat like this before. I also generally have avoided deep water, so this is a brand new experience for my building. I did go ahead and pull the roof off because it's going to make it a little easier to build in there. It can be a pain when you're constantly pushing back up through your roof. So I should have waited to put the roof on, but these things happen. I did notice that our plant coverage is actually, they don't care too much about plant coverage, but it does look a little sparse without any. So to finish up today, I'd like to go ahead and put in some foliage so that it looks hopefully a little less barren. And then I will work on finishing up the inside with just probably a simple barrier and some glass here and sprucing up the decoration. And then we'll see where the zoo leads us as we move forward with, the side of this building could probably use something, but I'd like to see what we end up putting over here, and maybe we can kind of cross some elements and help keep it thematic. All right, starting to look a little more lively in here with some foliage and rocks. I do want to just double check. I'm going to hit play and just double check, as sometimes all of this can really impact their navigable area. So they can't climb at a rock or there's a tree in the way. Some of them are considered screening. And as you can see, we didn't lose the area, but we are right on the edge of their coverage. I do know I could extend beyond that. So we will go ahead and probably put some rocks and underwater plants into our aquarium, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I know realistically some of these plants probably wouldn't be growing in the rocks, but I sure do like the way it has turned out and all the colors to accompany our waterfall. And you can see our guest taking a look. Probably should toss an enrichment item over here as well to encourage them. Let's get the Skittle feeder over here. See if that doesn't help encourage them to come where our guests would like to see them. But I think that worked pretty well, and what a nice little area to look through. You can see them pretty clearly. Oh, yeah. I'll take care of that. I may go ahead and turn that off since we're in sandbox, and I would very much like the water treatment there. But I just cannot express how pleased I am that this build turned out and that our little folks are getting up the ramp just fine to get into our water. And we can see our guests starting to join. And oh, look, he's in the water again. Oh, I'm just so happy about this. I will continue to work on the inside of the building. As I said, I'm just going to put pretty simple ramp, and then we'll decorate the inside of the box. But in the interest of time, I think we will go ahead and call it for now. If you would like to name our zoo, I think it is time to start thinking about a name and what we should call this place, as I think I'd like to go ahead and work on the entrance a little bit next time, take a break from habitat, as I still have some off-camera work to do on this one. So if you'd like to drop in the comments a thought for a name for our random zoo so we can get some nice signage built. If you made it with me this far, I'd like to thank you so much for joining. I hope you're enjoying the series, and I appreciate you following along with me. As always, have a pleasant day, and we'll see you soon.